Zixthar had been watching the human with barely concealed fascination for 3 standard cycles now. The creature, Marcus Chen according to the enrollment crystals, sat in the back row of advanced quantum mechanics, his strange bipedal form hunched over a primitive paper notebook, while every other student interfaced directly with the knowledge stream through neural implants. The human insisted on using a wooden stylus filled with ink to scratch symbols onto compressed plant matter. Adorable, Zixthar's quadmate Relnix had whispered during the first cycle. Like watching a juvenile attempt mathematics. But Zixthar noticed something the others missed. When Professor Quillmuth posed impossibly complex equations, Marcus would pause, tap his stylus against his teeth, a disturbing habit that made several Valorian students nauseous, and then write something down. And when the professor revealed the answers more often than not, the human had arrived at the correct solution through what he called intuition. The classroom on Valoris Prime was a marvel of engineering, a crystalline sphere floating 300 meters above the capital city. Inside, 67 students from 42 species sat in gravitationally suspended pods, learning from the finest minds in the galactic consortium. Humans had only joined the consortium 2 solar cycles ago, and Marcus was the first to attend the prestigious Valorian Institute of Higher Dimensional Studies. Everything was proceeding normally until the explosion. It started with Professor Quillmuth's demonstration of exotic matter containment. The shimmering orb of negative mass floated serenely in the center of the classroom, held in place by 16 redundant safety fields. The professor's tentacles waved elegantly as she explained the theoretical applications. Then the alarm shrieked. Containment field cascade failure, the automated voice announced with infuriating calm. Evacuate immediately. Estimated time to catastrophic expansion 47 seconds. Chaos erupted. The exotic matter began to pulse, each oscillation growing more violent. If it destabilized completely, it would create a pocket of inverted spacetime, collapsing everything within a 5-kilometer radius into a singularity the size of a quark. Students scrambled for the exits, their various appendages tangling in panic. Professor Quillmuth's voice boomed through the chaos, ordering calm, but her own tentacles trembled with fear. The backup containment fields flickered and died one by one. The primary field would fail in 30 seconds. Zixthar's 3 hearts hammered against her carapace. She was frozen in her pod, watching the exotic matter pulse with increasing violence. This was how she would die. Everyone in the classroom would die. Everyone in the district would die. Then Marcus moved. The human didn't run toward the exits. He launched himself from his pod with alarming speed. Humans had evolved in a 1G gravity well, making them absurdly strong on Valoris Prime's 0.7G environment. He hit the ground running, his primitive legs carrying him directly toward the failing containment field. "Human, no!" Professor Quillmuth shrieked. Marcus ignored her. He slid across the polished floor like he was performing some sort of tribal ritual, reaching the primary control console in seconds. His fingers, those bizarre 5-digited manipulators, flew across the interface with shocking precision. "What is the human doing?" Relnix whispered, having frozen beside Zixthar. 20 seconds, the automated voice announced. Marcus's face contorted in concentration, sweat beading on his smooth skin. The control console sparked, responding to inputs it was never designed to receive. The human was directly interfacing with a system that required 6 years of study to operate safely, and he'd been on Valoris Prime for 3 cycles. 10 seconds. "It's not working!" Someone screamed. But Marcus didn't stop. His hands moved in a blur, and he did something that would later be analyzed by engineering teams for months. He manually rerouted power from the classroom's artificial gravity generators, the life support systems, even the structural integrity fields. Everything, all of it channeling into one desperate attempt to reinforce the containment field. The gravity in the room vanished. Students began floating, screaming. The temperature dropped as life support failed. The crystalline walls groaned under stress. 5 seconds. Marcus slammed his palm against the console one final time. The exotic matter froze. The violent pulsing stopped. The orb hung suspended, perfectly still, contained within a jury-rigged field that by all laws of physics should not have functioned. Emergency power kicked in moments later, restoring proper containment, gravity, and life support. Silence filled the classroom. Marcus remained at the console, breathing hard, his primitive circulatory system clearly taxed by the effort. He turned to face the classroom, and Zixthar saw something in his eyes she'd never seen in any species before. A strange mixture of terror and exhilaration, as if dancing with death was somehow natural to him. "Sorry," Marcus said, his translator rendering the word in Galactic Standard. "I hope I didn't break anything expensive." Professor Colmoth's tentacles hung limp. How did you know which systems to reroute?" Marcus shrugged, another bizarre human gesture. "I didn't, not really. We had a similar problem with a fusion reactor on Earth once. The situation felt familiar." He paused. "Also, I played a lot of engineering simulation games as a kid, mostly during boring family dinners. The human had saved 67 lives by applying pattern recognition from recreational activities. Later that cycle, as medical teams checked students for shock and injury, Zixthar approached Marcus in the recovery bay. The human was drinking something brown and steaming from a container, another primitive habit. "You didn't run," Zixthar said quietly. Marcus looked at her, his binocular predator eyes meeting her compound vision. Running seemed statistically less likely to result in survival. "You could have died." "Yeah," Marcus agreed. "But everyone would have died if nobody tried." He took a sip of his drink. That seemed like a worse outcome. Zixthar's translator couldn't quite capture the casual way he dismissed his own near death. Later, she would learn this was called bravery in human culture, though they seemed to consider it unremarkable. As word of the incident spread throughout the consortium, analysts and xenopsychologists debated what it meant. Humans, it seemed, possessed something unique, a willingness to act when logic demanded paralysis, to improvise when protocols failed, to risk everything on incomplete information. Some called it recklessness, others called it courage. Zixthar, watching Marcus return to his back row seat the next cycle, notebook and stylus in hand, thought perhaps it was simply the human condition, adapting, surviving, refusing to accept extinction as inevitable. The human exchange student was settling in just fine.